to Comfort Crime with Lindsay Sanchez, a cozy mystery podcast where no actual crimes have been committed. Today, we'll continue Murder on Maple Mountain, a cozy mystery with an amateur sleuth, a second chance romance, and a killer who won't stop until they finished what was started 12 years ago. If this is your first time here, welcome, and please start with Episode 1, Chapter 1, or feel free to start with Season 1, which is the prequel short story Death at Dogwood Lake. There is a link to both in the show notes. For everyone else, we'll continue to Chapter 13, but first, an update. It has been so much fun this week to hear so many of your own experiences with little mysteries in your neighborhoods. Keep the stories coming. I love them. And for those of you that are local, I've even handed out a few spider plant babies. In other news, a listener just let me know that there is a Season 2 of the Marlowe Murder Club miniseries. Fingers crossed that they're as fun to watch as they were to read. And I do have a few other cozy mysteries on my waiting list, so with any luck, you'll be hearing about more than just the Marlowe Murder Club soon. I try to only mention the cozy mysteries that I do like, so for any number of books that I actually read, you are only hearing about mostly the select few that I actually enjoy. Okay, last time, Jake and Georgia followed the trail to a dusty, abandoned nursery with walls of black tarps. Someone was running a secret operation inside the old dogwood nursery with piles of crushed earth and vats of cyanide. Georgia expected pushback from their meddling. What she didn't expect was a body in her sister's hot tub. Murder on Maple Mountain, Chapter 13. Georgia stood, frozen in the cold as she stared, unmoving at the steam rising from the hot tub. It might have been an eternity or a moment for someone to find her. Next thing she knew, she was sitting at Sienna's kitchen table, across from Officer Briggs, a concerned look on his face. Someone had put a blanket around her and taken her inside. Someone had placed a steaming mug of tea in front of her. Someone was in the kitchen behind her, rummaging through the cupboards. "Tell me what happened," Officer Briggs said gently. "From the beginning." Georgia blinked as images flowed unbidden into her mind. A man in Sienna's hot tub, face down, his arms floating, every part of him undulating with the jets as the water swirled around him. It was like finding Tom in Dogwood Lake all over again, but worse. "Georgia," Officer Briggs interrupted. "Start from the beginning, please." "I came home." Georgia's voice was strange to her own ears, like she was far away or underwater. "I came inside and changed into a swimsuit and came back out, and when I opened the lid, he was there," she finished flatly. She couldn't say dead, drowned, floating helplessly. She couldn't say she'd stood in the cold, watching the water move him around her sister's hot tub like a rubber duck on a rippled lake. "Did you touch anything or notice anything strange?" he prompted, leaning forward on his elbows, his pen poised over his notebook. "No, I just opened the lid," she forced out, her jaw chattering uncontrollably, her fingers trembling. Briggs looked up, ready to ask his next question. He frowned. You're freezing. He stood up, walked around the table, and helped her to stand. Let's get you to the couch where you'll be more comfortable. He led her to the couch like a parent propelling a sleepy child. He put another blanket on her and started a fire. Feeling better? Sure, she managed to force out between her manic shivers. His frown deepened. How's that sandwich coming? He called over her into the kitchen. Officer Stewart appeared holding a plate with a sandwich and a pile of chips. Thank you. Yes, sir. Officer Stewart put the plate on the couch next to Georgia and patted her on the shoulder. I'm glad I found you when I did. He turned back to Briggs. I'll ring Sean and have him come talk to you. He worked for Barlow a few summers. I'm sure he has some knowledge about what was going on down at that nursery. No. I'll meet him somewhere else. Miss Lennox needs some rest. Briggs nodded to the door. Now, if you'll tell the others to keep the door shut as much as possible, to keep the warmth in, you can return to Rose's. Briggs waited for Stewart to leave before turning back to Georgia. Have you noticed anything strange the last few days? He found me? She asked. The moments after lifting the lid were too hazy to recall. He was on guard at Rose's. Briggs allowed the redirection. He heard you scream. Now please, if you can, answer the question. Something strange? She shook her head, trying to clear the fog. Nothing aside from what's going on with Ivy in Dogwood Nursery. She held the blankets tighter around her to slow her convulsions, trying to wrap her brain around the situation, cocoon it like Officer Briggs had encased her. Everything had pointed to the killer being the owner of the two nurseries. The cyanide at Dogwood Nursery, the threats, the legal battles, even his fake alibi. There had been no doubt in her mind that the man she now knew was Doug Barlow had killed Ivy Whitehead and was coming for Rose next. But he wasn't. The only thing he was coming for was a plot in the ground, 6 feet under. They must be connected, though, she whispered. Doug Barlow might not be Ivy's killer, but the fact that he'd been killed next confirmed that he was definitely involved. We're trying not to jump to any conclusions. Briggs wrote something in his notebook. How long has it been since you've been in the hot tub? Never. This was my first time opening it. Has anyone else been in the hot tub since Sienna left? Not that I know of, besides Mr. Barlow. She closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. Instead of soaking away the chill and stress of the day in the hot tub, and then curling up with a cheesy book, she was stuck here with Officer Briggs, shivering, answering his questions, and adding shock to the list of reasons she really wished she hadn't found another dead body. Well, she hesitated. Last night, Sean had suggested getting in the hot tub. Had he actually lifted the lid? Or had they just walked by when she said no? Yes. Briggs clued into her processing. Did you remember something? It's probably nothing. Georgia wanted to wave it away. They hadn't gotten into it. She didn't even remember if he'd actually opened it. Anything you might remember, it could help. We're trying to establish a timeline. Well, last night Sean said we should get in. He might have lifted the lid. I can't remember. Sean was looking in the hot tub? Briggs made a note. Maybe. Okay, can you tell me what Sienna's relationship to the victim was? As far as I know, no relationship. Nothing. According to this, she ordered a special sort of hand cream from him. Do you know anything about that? Officer Briggs slid a photo of a bottle of lotion across the table to her. No. She racked her brain for any mention of lotion or the man from Pineville Nursery. She broke her wrist as a kid. I know it bothered her, especially in the cold. She used some sort of cream that helped. Maybe it's this. This lotion is... Officer Briggs took the photo back and stored it in a photo. Technically legal, because the CBD oil is derived from a different plant from other substances, but it is in enough of a gray area to be hard to find in a city like Dogwood. Okay. Georgia had no idea where he was going with this, why Doug Barlow had ended up in her sister's hot tub, or how any of it had anything to do with hand cream. You had no knowledge of this or its connection to the victim, is that correct? You don't still think this had something to do with Sienna, do you? We're simply gathering information. Briggs made another note. If they were looking at Sienna, the department was so far off the mark it was scary, dangerous. You'll still protect Rose. Panic grew in Georgia's throat. When it had just been Ivy, there had been a chance it had been a mistake. She'd known it wasn't, that it was murder, but there had still been a sparkle of hope that she was wrong. That gaslighting voice in the back of her brain that told her she was stirring up useless trouble. With Doug Barlow's murder, that hope was gone, and Rose was in more danger now than ever. Officer Stewart will remain at Rose's. He'll keep an eye on both of you. Don't worry about me, just keep Rose safe. I do worry about you. Briggs sighed and shut his notebook. I worry about where you're going, what you're saying, and what misguided efforts might lead you to contaminate information. He sighed again. But mostly, I worry about your safety. I take my role as an officer to protect the peace and the people of this town very seriously, and I respect your father a great deal. You might not agree with how I'm running things, but let me run them. Georgia opened her mouth to respond. Don't argue. Briggs cut her off. A hot tub is not a convenient place to hide a body. It's not an accident that Mr. Barlow was put there. He was left for you to find. You think they wanted me to find him? He was right. Of course he was right. It couldn't be a coincidence. Doug Barlow had been left in Sienna's hot tub on purpose. He'd been left for her to find. Someone was sending her a message. I don't want to scare you, but yes, there is no other conceivable conclusion. And you think Sienna's the link between Ivy and Flip-Flops? Georgia tried to hide her exasperation. She's not even in the country, and you think she killed him because she bought lotion? Frank and Lisa got cake containers from him. Maybe they got mad about those and dumped him in the hot tub. I understand it's been a trying day. Officer Briggs remained calm, his face and voice unchanged by her outburst. And if you need a break, I can come back in a few hours when you've settled. No. She took a deep breath. I'm fine. She wasn't, but waiting a few hours wasn't going to change that. It's just weird that you'd suspect her and not the dozen other people actually here, like me. I'm the one that found them both. I'm the one here. I did not say that we suspect your sister. He paused as if to let his next words sink in. Or that we don't suspect you. But you don't. Georgia had spent enough of her childhood at the police department and enough of her teen years trolling cold cases to recognize his deflection. He didn't think she was involved. She knew that much. You were here with Jake all day, and he was stationed here throughout the night. And Sienna is literally an ocean away. There's no chance she could have had anything to do with this man's death. She doesn't even know he's dead. She's asleep right now in London with her husband and children. I'm simply establishing facts and exploring any potential relationship between the two deaths. Of course they're related. This man didn't decide to get in my sister's hot tub with his clothes on and then slip and hit his head and drown. The lid didn't close over him and trap him so he couldn't get out before all the oxygen was gone. This wasn't a suicide or an accident. This man was murdered, just like Ivy. Please know that the questions I ask do pertain to the investigation, even if you don't see the connection. Briggs pinched the bridge of his nose, like he was trying to stop a migraine from spreading. I'm just looking for the facts. He suspected someone, and he was trying to get information from Georgia without letting her know who. He wanted Georgia to stick to the facts. The facts are there was cyanide in Ivy's frosting, and there's cyanide in this man's nursery. Ivy was looking into something. You can ask Frank. She's been researching Doug Barlow for years. So if we can just move on past my sister and whatever fight she and Ivy had over a dumb bird and get to somebody who might actually have had a motive and a real connection to the two murders. I have the same respect for Sienna as I do for you, if that gives you any consolation. Even if she was in town, it's not like she could lift a man that size into a hot tub. Rose, Frank, me, none of us could. Okay, Briggs nodded. And what's your sister's relationship to Rose and Frank? I thought we were moving on from my sister. Now it was George's turn to feel a migraine coming on. Fighting with Briggs about Sienna hadn't solved any murders, but it had distracted her from the icy pit that had slipped down her stomach when she'd found Doug Barlow. It had woken her out of her shocked stupor and calmed her shaking hands. It was better than being alone. Humor me. Briggs reopened his notebook and rested his elbows on his knees. They were friends, neighbors. And did she have the same closeness with Ivy and Sean? Briggs asked, his eyebrows raised slightly as he mentioned Sean. That was it. That's what he was hiding, who he suspected. Of course it didn't make sense for Sienna to be involved. Her buying cakes and leaving the country after a fight with Ivy, it hadn't looked good initially, but now that she was in London, it couldn't have been her. But Sean was here. He had motive to kill Ivy. And if he had gotten the cyanide from Doug Barlow, he'd have motive to kill him too. He was certainly strong enough to lift a lifeless Doug. He was the connection. And that's why Briggs had asked Officer Stewart to go back to Rose's. He wasn't worried about Rose. He suspected Sean and didn't want his dad to know. They didn't have a relationship. Really? Briggs leaned so far forward, it looked like he'd fall off the stone hearth fireplace. After years of living next to each other in this small, gated community, she had no relationship with either of them. I mean, not really. My sister's up here by herself with her 2 kids all day. She and Ivy didn't get along, and from what I've heard, Sean is mostly skiing or snowboarding. Georgia shrugged, trying to look more casual and natural than she felt. Imagine for a moment that you're a woman left alone. Briggs held her gaze. Your husband is always traveling. There's no one for company but geriatric neighbors, and one day a handsome man moves in next door. One who helps you shovel your driveway, who actually pays attention to you. Even if you don't like his aunt, don't you think you'd at least be friends with him? They didn't have much in common. She shrugged again. He didn't believe it, but it was true. Listen, the only thing I heard about Sean before I met him a few days ago was that Sienna wanted to set me up with him. She's in love with Daniel. I didn't say anything about love. Briggs raised his dark, bushy eyebrows so high it looked like they'd escaped from his hairline. What makes you jump to that conclusion? He was leading her, seeing where she would slip, what she knew that she didn't want to tell him. The fact that this whole time you've only asked me questions about my sister. This is her house. He shrugged like it was obvious, logical. But if he suspected Sean and Sienna, if he was so focused on the fact that Ivy and Barlow had been the ones who died, then he was forgetting that it was Rose's cake that had been poisoned. If he'd just sent Stuart away to get rid of him because he was Sean's father and they weren't taking the threat to Rose seriously? I don't think it was Sean, she said straight out. Clearly, trying to play his game and beat around the bush wasn't getting her anywhere she wanted to go. What makes you say that? He recovered his surprise quickly, a hint of appreciation in his smile. You're forgetting about Rose. It was her cake that was poisoned. Frosting, Briggs corrected, all admiration gone. Frosting that could have been added at any time, at any place from anyone. There's no evidence that Rose was the intended target. Anyone at the market could have distracted Ivy for a moment and drizzled cyanide on that cake. So you're just dismissing the potential that Rose could have been the target? No. Briggs stood, clearly interpreting that he wouldn't get anything more from Georgia. Not about this. I'm looking for the facts. There have been 2 dead bodies, and no one has come close to Rose. If the killer wanted her dead so badly, why not take her out before Barlow? Barlow knew who took the cyanide. The killer had to kill him to keep him silent. You don't know that. Briggs shook his head. But even if that was true, why not kill them at the same time? How come he didn't dump them both in the hot tub? You've had an officer there. She's been protected. Worry tightened Georgia's chest. If Briggs didn't take the threat seriously, Rose would likely be next. We'll keep someone there, he said gently, as if he could read the panic on her face. We don't want her hurt either. Officer Briggs, I think I found something. A young man Georgia didn't recognize held up a plastic evidence bag with a phone and car keys. Officer Briggs held up a hand, telling the young man to wait. Jake and Lisa are on their way to stay with you. Lisa wants to keep the bakery closed until all of this is figured out, and you could use the company." It wasn't a question, and she was grateful for that. Whoever was killing people knew her past. They knew that she had found Tom in Dogwood Lake 12 years ago, and now had left another drowned man for her to find. Whoever it was toying with her, or sending her a message. If it was all a sick joke to them, none of them were safe. But if it was a message, a warning like Briggs thought, that meant she was close enough to scare them. She couldn't back off now. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a mystery-loving friend, or consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast player. Most of all, thank you so much for being here today. I loved it, and I'm already excited for next week.